Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast. That is, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back to Potomac Watch, the daily podcast of the Wall Street Journal opinion page. I'm Paul Gigot. I'm here with Kyle Peterson and Bill McGurn. Let's turn to the CNN interview scheduled to be shown on Thursday evening at 9 p.m. It's actually going to be taped this afternoon, I gather, in Georgia and shown tonight. It's going to be conducted by Dana Bash, a seasoned CNN anchor, and it's going to include Tim Walz, the vice president. So it's not just going to be one-on-one, it's going to be one-on-two. And my impression is that was insisted upon by the Kamala Harris campaign. It's a price of getting the interview. And of course, it's notable because it's the first interview, Kyle, that Kamala Harris has, or her handlers, whoever's making this decision, has deigned to grant to a media organization of any length. I mean, she's answered a couple of brief questions, but at any length to a journalist since she got the nomination 4 or 5 weeks ago and was made the, first of all, the presumptive nominee and then now the formal nominee. It's extraordinary that she hasn't done anything like this. So what do you think of the interview? What's your expectation?
Yes, she said she would do an interview by the end of the month. And here it is. It's going to come on at 9 p.m. on August 29th.
Under the wire.
To me, and with a co-pilot here in Tim Walz, it seems to me that it suggests, and not without reason, that the Kamala Harris campaign thinks it is ahead in the polling. The recent polling that has come out has shown Kamala Harris with a bit of a bump coming out of the Democratic National Convention. And they're worried that if she gets out there one-on-one with a journalist, she will have to start answering some of the questions about her past positions and what she wants to do if she goes into the Oval Office. And she has a pretty good history of flailing in some of these interviews, including on some of the exact questions that are probably on voters' minds, like her Medicare for All proposal from 2019, the 2020 presidential campaign, the Democratic primary there. So I expect that she will try to burn as much time as she can with pleasantries and chatter with Tim Walz about their relationship, the dynamic between them and whatnot. And I think part of this is a test for the press and the interviewer. If this is the only interview this month that the Democratic nominee for president is going to get.
Or maybe this election.
I would hope that we get some hard questions about those things. Ms. Harris, why did you change your mind about Medicare for All? What do you really think about immigration policy or China, Taiwan?
And she has never been forced to answer because she didn't run in the primaries. So she could slipstream behind the Biden positions without actually committing herself to those positions unless she wants to. And, of course, we have that record from 2019 when he ran for president where she took these positions banning fracking and raising doubts about the current immigration office and Medicare for All and so much more. She's never explained why, if she's changed her opinions, she did. What changed? What is her thinking? You can give an answer. There's a possible answer, Bill, but she hasn't given it. And then there's the whole issue of foreign policy, where she is, in many respects, a blank slate. She devoted some time to talking about a muscular foreign policy she would promote in her convention speech. But then when she got to the Middle East, she had it both ways with Gaza. I'll defend Israel, but the way Israel is prosecuting the war in Gaza is a problem. That's really trying to navigate the difference of opinion in the Democratic coalition. Doesn't give us a real insight into what her instincts on foreign policy are. And I have to say, I find it dismaying that she's appearing with Tim Walz. I mean, it's going to cut into a significant amount of the time that Dana Bash has to go at the vice president on specific issues. A lot of it will be, oh, man, Tim and I we're so compatible. It's so great. We've hit it off so well. It's going to be all that baloney. And the real answers that the American public deserves, are they going to get them or not? It isn't clear.
Yeah, there's precedent for this, of course. I think the press was complicit in hiding Joe Biden's real mental condition from the American people. And the only reason they couldn't continue to hide it is because he was out there in a debate Donald Trump and no one to protect or shield him from himself. And I think they're doing it now. If you asked even a month ago, could Kamala Harris get away with this new strategy of not giving interviews, not answering questions? I say, of course not. The press's own self-interest and self-respect would mitigate against that. But I'm not so sure now. I don't really have a problem with the format of the interview, even Tim Walz, not what I would like. I would like to see her answer. But if it was one of dozens of interviews, fine, let them all take a different angle and slice it different ways. But it strikes me, her answer for the last month, I will decide or set up an interview, one, by the end of the month. We in the press are like the people trying to see the Wizard of Oz. Remember the first meeting? No one gets to see the Great Oz. No one know how. Then they get in and the Scarecrow has to snivel up on his belly. The Tin Man is juggling and the Cowardly Lion, of course, runs away. We're treating it's like a grant rather than something we should be demanding regularly. As you say, the denials, Tom Cotton, I think, handled himself very well in an ABC interview when he was told, well, Kamala Harris now says she supports a border wall. He said, she says no such thing. She hasn't said that. It's an anonymous surrogate.
Right. That's what we found out about so much. They're anonymous surrogates.
Right. And so we don't know what Kamala Harris believes. I think what it does, it all puts the pressure back on the debates. If Donald Trump can be more disciplined, and it'll be hard for him to be aggressive in demanding accountability from her and holding her to her past views and the policies of the Biden administration, but without making personal comments, I think he can make real inroads. I think if people saw her handling the issues with no one there to protect her, no Tim Walz, no one to ask softball questions, I think it'd be a different story.
Well, you mentioned debates, plural, Bill. I'm not so sure there's going to be more than the September 10th debate. And if Harris stays where she is, now I think she's ahead in national polls. There's a pretty clear 2-3 point lead in the national polls, closer in the swing states, but she's very competitive in all of them right now. I'm not so sure they will risk another debate. They may think the campaign they can get away with it. So I'm not at all sure that this might not be the last interview she does, Kyle. Last word.
Yeah, I think that's true, though the message discipline that Bill is asking for that holds true throughout the campaign. I mean, one way to try to get her to do some more interviews is to put her on the defensive. If every day Donald Trump and J.D. Vance had one message, which was something like 150 million people in this country have health insurance through their employers, Kamala Harris called in 2020 for making that illegal. She hasn't repudiated that plan. She hasn't explained why she changed her mind. If they were driving that consistent message, then she might feel some obligation to come out and answer that question. But the message discipline is one of the hardest things for Donald Trump in particular. He just goes back to this old rally style of getting in front of these big crowds and playing the hits and trying to be exciting and interesting and make some news. But then the news is about him, and the news is about the personal attacks that he's levying instead of the real political issues that I think put him at an advantage.
Well, a very good point. Trump's lack of focus helps Kamala Harris get off the hook. All right. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with consideration of just how that interview with Kamala Harris went and what we learned, if anything, about the vice president. Thanks for listening.